On January 27th, Chinese artificial intelligence company DeepSeek made waves with the release of their latest model, R1. As a result, the stock price of U.S. company NVIDIA tanked 17% in a single day, leading to almost $600 billion in value lost. This was the biggest one-day drop of a stock in history. You probably haven't heard of NVIDIA before, but the company is a giant in the tech space. It builds the processors that power AI platforms like ChatGPT by OpenAI and Gemini by Google. So what caused this shakeup of NVIDIA stock? Although DeepSeek mirrors existing models in many ways, there's one trait that sets it apart.
Part of the reason that it made such a big splash is they made somewhat dramatic claims about how much money it cost to actually make the model, which was a lot less than what OpenAI had done. There's some question around those numbers, whether or not those are accurate. Also, it doesn't reflect the full cost of creating a model like that. But it was certainly an improvement on what OpenAI had been reporting.
That's Mark Finlayson, Associate Professor of Computer Science at Florida International University. DeepSeek claims to have trained RI for around $6 million, using far less computing power and processors than other U.S. models. However, there's reason to believe that this impressive number may not be entirely accurate.
There's a lot of other costs that are not reported in that number. So there's the cost of the hardware, so buying the hardware, the cost of the labor, right? So all the people that are involved, not only the engineers and scientists, but also the collecting the training data from people, cost of the data itself. Then there's also lots and lots of model training runs. So you train a model once, you try it out, that didn't work, so you make some adjustments, you can train it again, right? And in fact, this latest model was built on top of outputs generated by an earlier model of theirs, right? So you kind of have to look at the whole picture to get the full training costs. It's not like they just came out of nowhere and it costs only $6 million. And also that number is somewhat suspect until it's been verified by other people.
By comparison, according to Forbes, the latest version of ChatGPT is thought to have cost anywhere between $41 to $78 million. A big portion of this price tag stemmed from the tens of thousands of NVIDIA computing chips it needed in order to power its learning of information. Omar Iqbal is an AI and technology policy expert and says that the hefty price tag is a big issue for startups. Iqbal is an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Washington University in St. Louis.
Right now, one of the big constraints in training AI models is that they cost a lot. So you have to be very cautious as to how many models you can train. So you're limited essentially by the energy cost. So once you have the capacity to train more models, so that constraint will be lifted and we'll see a lot more innovation.
Iqbal credits OpenAI's ChatGPT as the original innovator, and rightfully so. The company is a pioneer in the field, and its Chinese competitor wouldn't have been able to create a cost-efficient model without this initial framework. Right now, the U.S. is considered the global leader in AI. However, China is quickly catching up. When tested for a variety of benchmarks, Iqbal says DeepSeek actually performed better than ChatGPT in multiple categories.
The way that these models are evaluated on a set of benchmarks, these benchmarks evaluate the capabilities of models across a variety of tasks, which involve solving mathematical questions, solving reasoning-based questions, and a bunch of other things. And on many of these benchmarks, DeepSeek's models have performed really, really well.
While DeepSeek may outperform ChatGPT in technical tasks like coding and math, Finlayson says the difference is marginal at best, which means the U.S. and China are neck and neck in the global AI race. In order for the U.S. to come out on top, some experts believe that companies need to rethink their strategy. DeepSeek has already garnered added attention by releasing its internal coding models for R1, allowing developers worldwide to use and build off of their work. ChatGPT hasn't done this yet, but with the competition heating up, they may not have a choice.
For OpenAI, I think it's going to push them to be more open, actually open as opposed to closed. So they have not been very forthcoming about how their models work. in detail. They have not released the models in the wild since, the early GPT models that they had. They haven't really said much about, what the training data has been, only very high level stuff. So I think that you have a competitor model that's cheaper and comparably performing, which is completely open. You can download it and run it on your own machine. That's going to push OpenAI to be more open themselves, right? Now that they have a competitor. They were in a bit of a monopolistic position before, where they were kind of the only product on the market, which had been trained with that much data and performed that well. And so they could just basically do whatever they wanted. And now they have an actual competitor in the field. That's going to force them to be more like the competitor.
For people like you and me, it's probably not worth it to pay for the latest model of ChatGPT. This is where DeepSeek hopes to grow, since it's easy to use and free. While there is potential, experts are worried about user security. In many ways, these worries are very similar to the ongoing battle with TikTok.
Any company related to IT in China has to employ a person. So the company pays the person, but that person actually works for the government. And it's their job to sort of be the government's liaison into that company's networks and data. And they have the power to do things like take down web pages and don't do that, give us this data, blah, blah, blah. And already there's been evidence revealed that, DeepSeek has ties to various state agencies, as well as is collecting information, their users, more than you might expect. And then, of course, the rule of law is very weak in China. Data protection is very weak. So even if they say they're not going to collect that data, or they aren't, you really can't, you have no recourse and no guarantee.
Another big downside is that DeepSeek's answers may not portray the full story.
If you ask it anything that's sort of, sensitive to the Chinese worldview, the Chinese government's worldview, or something that's not, they disagree with, you ask them, is she an autocrat? It refuses to answer. You ask it about Tiananmen Square, it refuses to answer, right? So people complain about US systems having bias, but that's bias that's kind of unintentionally built in from the data. This is bias that's been intentionally built in, political bias, where it will not criticize China. Yet if you ask it to criticize the US, it'll happily go on and find all sorts of human rights abuses that the US has done, but it won't say anything bad about China.
Despite these concerns, Finlayson doubts the US would move to ban DeepSeek unless it gains a massive user base here. All of this being said, it's just one of hundreds of similar AI models released in recent years. While its debut sparked initial panic, the frenzy has already died down, and NVIDIA's stock has largely bounced back. Only time will tell if DeepSeek has real staying power, but for now, it's driving other companies to step up. To find out more about Mark Finlayson, Omar Iqbal, and all of our featured guests, visit viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, check out Viewpoints Radio on X, Facebook, and Instagram. This segment was written and produced by Grace Galanti. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.